Hello, guys, and welcome to Talk of Fame. I hope everyone's having a great day. And today on the podcast, you may be wondering who the guest on is today, and I got you covered. I'm joined by co-founder of Maverick Community and Maverick Forward, and for former professional tennis player, CEO of Mindsize and adidasRunners, global mindset coach, in which he developed a unique approach to mindset training through proven mindfulness techniques in sports. I've been looking forward to this interview for a long time. I'm so happy me and Christian were able to connect, and I appreciate you taking the time, Christian, for coming on. I'm really excited to talk with you.
Likewise, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, tell us more kind of about your journey from being a professional tennis player to being a coach.
Yeah, well, many journeys of many people in this world, it's kind of a lot of coincidences came together. So I wanted to be, my goal was always my dream to be the best tennis player in the world. I started when I was little and kind of was on my journey. And then when I was in my late teens, 20, then I had an injury and they had to remove my first rib. And after that, I had to stop playing professionally. And my coach and mentor kind of suggested that I should try coaching, which I had never really thought about in my life. So I tried it out and turned out I really loved it and had even kind of a more natural kind of affinity towards than maybe even towards playing matches. So I started coaching. I had a lot of fun. I was fortunate to have a lot of good players when I was very young. So they were successful. I was with them when I was coaching them. And then I was kind of noticing that with most of the players that I was working with, whether they were professionals or recreational players, that they were getting frustrated when they weren't able to play as good as they remember they could play, maybe 30 minutes before or the day before, the week before. And that was very much the way it was for me also when I was playing, very inconsistent kind of compared to my optimal level. I would play my best. And that kind of led really towards the mental performance coaching side of things that I'm focused on right now. And then things developed. You start coaching. If you're lucky and you are interested and motivated, passionate, kind of about with what you do, then you kind of have a couple of situations where it starts to be interesting to explore different nuances of performance. And that's how I went into mindfulness performance coaching, not just with tennis players, with other athletes. I started working for Adidas as their mindset coach. Then I started teaching at the university here in Los Angeles. And along that route, I also started my own company, Maverick Community and Maverick Forward, which is a nonprofit, where we're helping people kind of like me, just personal trainers and physical therapists, to really help them, support them, scale their business, give them the resources to be able to be the best trainers and coaches and therapists that they can be. And yeah, and now I'm here
Ooh,
with you.
that sounds awesome. When you first started coaching, did you first start coaching mindset or did you coach something completely different than what you're doing right now?
I started coaching tennis.
Oh, you started coaching
Everything
tennis?
started with tennis. I started playing tennis, then coaching tennis, and then from tennis it went into mindfulness coaching.
Ooh, how old were you when you got injured? Were you in your late teens or were you a kind of an adult when you got injured? Because
Yeah,
did
late
you
teens it
play
started, like
professional?
19.
Oh, you're 19?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Like, did you how did you feel when you got injured though? Especially at 19 years old, you basically saw yourself kind of becoming like a pro tennis player, but then like of course the injury kind of set you back and you weren't allowed to play again. Like how did it kind of like tend to think like, oh, I can't play tennis professionally ever again in my life, even though I want to?
Yeah, it was like a slow process because the injury wasn't a, sudden traumatic injury where like you break a bone or tear a muscle and you can't perform anymore. It was more
Hmm.
like a slow process, which like went on over like the course of a year, 1.5 years, and just getting progressively worse and worse. And then I tried to fix that with surgery. um, so I was already for like 1.5 years, kind of, it was a little bit of a struggle. And then after the surgery, when the surgery didn't have the desired effect, then it was kind of like, okay, now I have to stop. And it was for sure challenging, but not as challenging maybe as like some other things in my life. It didn't hit me as hard maybe as one would imagine because it wasn't such a sudden thing. I was like in this thing already for like almost 2 years now, so you're not totally struck when actually it happens.
Yeah, like if like that literally happened to me, I literally felt like my life is over if something happened to me. Like was that like kind of like how you felt like when that situation occurred when you're 19?
Well, when I was 19, when it started happening, that's when it was just like it started like another injury. You have as a professional athlete, you have many injuries. Some athletes more than others, but like everybody has injuries. You always have to take time off, and you never think like, oh, this is going to be a career-ending injury now or eventually. Nor did I. But once I was going through this back and forth of like trying to play and the pain didn't go away, trying to play, it didn't go away. And I eventually realized I won't be able to play without pain, so I can't perform at a world-class level. Um, it was for sure like it's a hard pill to swallow, but it was more the challenge was a little bit more at that point like what am I going to do now rather
Yeah.
than oh my god I can't do this thing anymore.
Yeah, like that's literally how I feel. Was like once you get done with one thing, you're like, what am I gonna do after this when once this is over? Like with my job, like I will end until probably most likely September, and I'm wondering like, what am I going to do once this thing's over? Like you just don't know like what's going on and what you want your life to kind of be in terms of like maybe not career wise, but what you want to do yourself personally, though, is something like it's very hard to think about personally. From my experience, like it's just like, what am I gonna do with my free time? This thing is over.
Yeah, I mean, some people get lucky at a young age. Some people never have this experience, but at the end of the day, from my perspective, it's about what event, what experiences, or what activities have this effect on you that you really love it, that you're
Mhm.
excited about it, that you're looking forward towards doing it, and not just for a brief period of time, like let's say a hobby has that effect on some people, but not to the degree that they want to spend all of their time doing it or most of their time and not for years and years and years. And that's
Mhm.
basically the difference. You just want, if you're lucky enough to have the opportunity, go onto a kind of discovery journey to just experience as many different things as possible, so you don't know which experience, which activity, which subject matter, or which people will have this effect on you that you will be super passionate about it. You might have ideas and opinions, but whether that's actually going to be the case, you cannot know, and nobody will ever know. um, but once it's happening to you, you will know. And you will not know intellectually, you won't know it in your mind, you will know it experientially, because
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing else that you want to do. And once you have the fortunate situation, and many people in this world aren't fortunate enough to experience it for various reasons because of the life circumstances that they have been born into, for example, or many other situations, the geographical location that they have born into, or other events that happen in their life. So if you are somebody so fortunate that you experience something that creates so much passion and interest in you that you want to really only do that if you could, then you are one of the more luckier people in this world. And then
Yeah.
it's going to be doing the activities are going to be effortful, but because there's not going to be a lot of resistance, it's going to be relatively effortless because of that, in terms of how much you want to do it, how much you have to convince yourself to do it. You're just going to be doing it because you don't want to do anything else.
Because like when you do that one specific thing all the time, you just don't picture yourself doing something else other than that specific thing. Even like when I started this whole podcasting journey, I never pictured myself doing other like journalism or anything else besides journalism. I always picture myself doing this. But like when if I like don't picture journalism in my life, I'm like, what am I gonna do with myself? Like, what am I gonna do when I go to college in 2 years? Like, what am I supposed to do? And I'm sure like with when you got done with tennis at 19 years old, it's just like what do I picture myself doing? And then a little bit later, you're a coach after tennis. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you just like when things come your way, whoever it's like being a coach, for example, like you just like never see it coming or expect to be this thing until you actually are doing what you're doing currently.
Yeah, I would like differentiate that slightly. It's kind of a subtle distinction, but it's kind of key
Mm-hmm.
that what I picture myself doing, if I think about it, and those thoughts, visual thoughts in this case, when we're saying we're picturing it, right?
Yeah.
In the future of me doing this thing, journalism, podcasting, let's say in your case, if this thought creates a pleasant feeling within you and like it makes you happy, that's great. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that the activity of being a journalist also has that effect. It could,
Exactly.
but it also very much cannot. And that's why a lot of people think, meaning they picture in their mind themselves in a certain scenario and think this is great. Actresses, a lot of times, like, I want to be an actress. And when they're actually an actress, and all the things they need to do in order to be a successful working actress or actor, they're hating it.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than trying to believe and being attached to what you think you will love, because the thought of it itself creates a pleasant experience, I recommend, based on my own experience, to pay attention to what activity is causing you joy and pleasure and passion, not which thought about an activity. So, and
Mm-hmm.
once you're sitting here and prepping for the podcast and reading up about your guest and researching everything and organizing it and then talking and then editing the podcast and all of the things, the tedious ones and the long lasting ones, all of them are kind of joyful for you, and those are what you enjoy doing, then you have found your passion.
Mm-hmm. Even though like it might seem so cool when you watch on social media, it might not turn out what you expected it to be. Because like when you see the hard work that goes into that thing, because everything that you do, whether it's being a tennis player, an actor, a singer, whatever it may be, but everything has its work. You have to probably put in a couple hours each day to put in that work. I'm sure for you as well. Like you have to put a lot of hours into practicing for tennis. And it's like when you see how much work you need to put in, it's like, what the hell am I doing? Like, why am I have to put in so much work for this, even though like I vision myself doing this thing like tennis. You never like because like a lot of people get scared or freaked out like when they see how much work they have to put into the specific thing. And I know like if they have a dream about it, then they'll achieve it. But if it's like people that are kind of considering it, don't have a mind space for what they're trying to do, they're like, I give up and find something that causes less time and commitment.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of people like that, but the people that function like that, prefer to commit to an activity, whether that's their job or anything else in their life that doesn't take a lot of time and commitment,
Mm-hmm.
then it might be pleasurable, but they're not going to become the best they could be, because whatever it is that you want to do and you want to be the best at, if that is a goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
You will have to do it a lot. It will have to be the priority in your life. Whatever is not the main priority in your life, you won't be able to achieve the optimal skill set that you could theoretically accomplish if you would commit all the time to it, right? So let's
Mm-hmm.
just take the podcasting experience. If you spend every day 4 hours on podcasting with everything that's included, research, researching guests, reaching out to guests, the podcasts themselves, editing, filming, all the things that are necessary, improving your the way you speak, improving the way you ask questions, improving the way you understand answers, and so forth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Many, many other things. If you spend 4 hours on that every day and you do it for 5 years, you're going to improve a lot. And if there's a person that spends 8 hours every day for 4 years, they're going to improve much more than you.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple. So, if, however, it is not your passion, if you don't absolutely love doing it, you're not going to spend those 8 hours or 10 hours or 11 hours doing it because you want to do other things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important. It's not right or wrong. That's not you're doing something wrong. It's just understanding the basic mechanism. It's like if you want to find something that you could be the absolute best at, you can only become the best if you're so passionate about it that you want to do that as the number one thing in your life. And that
Mm-hmm.
could be a father or a mother, or it could be uh, working in philanthropy, it could be a teacher, it doesn't matter what the activity is, right?
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with fame, it has nothing to do with money, it has all to do what is required in order for you to become the best that you could be in theory.
Mm-hmm. And like when you play tennis, like did you kind of have like that mindset in training when you were training back when you're in tennis, or did you kind of have like I go to attitude where like, oh, I'm going to tennis. This is something like I have to do. Like, did you have like kind of like a mindset towards of going into tennis, or did you kind of have like no mindset?
No mindset is a challenge. You're always going to have some kind of mindset, whether it's a beneficial one or one that's suboptimal. But there's going to be something happening. But in my case, I definitely, without a doubt, could have done better in
Mm.
terms of how much I would have committed, how hard I tried in any given moment, how many things I could have left out, that I shouldn't have been doing that I did anyway. But that being said, it's also speaking like in the top percentile, like I every day since I started playing with tennis when I was 4 years old. By the time I was 7 years old, it was the main thing in my life. And I would get up every morning at 6:13. I would walk to the bus at 6:47, take the bus at 7 o'clock, take the first bus, took 20 minutes, bus stop, wait 15 minutes, take the second bus, arrive at school at 7:45, 7:50 the school started, finish school at 1:25. At 1:30 my mother would pick me up from school. We would drive 100 miles to practice. In the car I would do homework, have lunch. Practice would start at 3 o'clock, and then I would practice from 3 until 7 or 7:30. Tennis, fitness, physical therapy, take a shower, drive back at 8 o'clock, do homework in the car from 8:30 to 9:30, maybe eat or eat at home, and go to bed at 10. And I would do that 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. And every Friday evening or Saturday morning, I would drive to a tournament around 30 weekends out of the year. And I was doing that from the time I was 7 until I was 16 without a break. Every time there was a school holidays, I would go on tennis camp or play more tournaments. So I would never go on a school trip one time in my life. By the time I was 16, I moved to Spain and then basically increased what I just told you, double. So because I didn't have to go to school anymore, I was doing all of what I did in the afternoon and all of that in the morning also. And that, what I just explained now, doesn't include all the things that I had to not do, right? In order to be able to do the things that I needed to do or wanted to do. And this is not unique to me as like, that's me, Christian, and like nobody else is doing that. That is in some shape or form the life of every single athlete, professional athlete that you will ever hear of in any sport, more or less. There's some exceptions. Some sports have kind of like a unique thing, and sometimes people can start later in their life and still be a professional, but it's pretty rare. Most of the time you start somewhere between 4 and 7 the latest, and then that is what you do. And yeah, some children think about, oh, I want to like win Wimbledon and this and that, but like the thought about winning Wimbledon or being Olympic champion is not sufficient to make you work at your best 7 hours every day for the next 10, 15, 20 years. No thought is that powerful. So you have to be enjoying like these 7 hours, 8 hours, 9 hours. You have to enjoy it so much that you are okay not spending time with your friends. You have to enjoy it so much that you're okay not going out to party. That you're okay not watching TV in the evening and going to bed at the right time. And all of these things that kind of come along with it. And that, if in your mind, if you understand all of these things, is not going to cut it. You have to just want it.
Because like even though it might damage you from doing that every single day for multiple hours, like I usually do this every single day. Like yesterday I had like 3 interviews yesterday and it took up most of my day. And that's like literally kind of an example of how I go like day goes, because like I usually have 3 interviews a day, 2 interviews, 1 interview a day, depending on my day goes, and basically go to bed late and edit it, and literally sometimes go for ice cream with my parents or go out with my friends for a bit, and that happens rarely. Like I like when I like do go out with my friends, like is this like all you can probably talk about is tennis, for example, your work, and like sometimes like you just like you like feel like you're missing out on so much, like because of like I say tennis is taking up so much time that you basically have no time for anything else besides that one specific thing. And that can like damage you, because like when you look back on that as you get older, you're like, why did I spend so much time on this? But then if you're still doing that, it might be worth your while. You might be going to the Olympics or like work with your idol you've been dreaming about for years. Like it'll of course be worth it, but it can always, when you look back, you're like, why did I spend that much time on one specific thing?
Well, I mean, now you're kind of moving into again, like before you were saying, like if you're thinking about like picturing yourself doing in the future, if that's good, and now it's the reverse. Now you're thinking about like remembering,
Mm-hmm.
whether that was good or not. But like you're not then really living in the moment, so to speak, right? How
Yeah.
what people say. But what does living in the moment mean? It means you pay attention to what you're doing right now, whatever that is. And if you are thinking about the past a lot, everybody's thinking about the past, of course, but if there's like a discrepancy in terms how much are you paying attention to your life right now, because that's all that you have, and how much are you just living in your head in the
Mm-hmm.
past or in the future, which really doesn't exist. The past doesn't exist other than in your own head. It's
Mm-hmm.
not tangible, it's just a thought, right? So um whether you were missing out or not missing out um, is not really the question in my mind. It's like, am I enjoying what I'm doing? And I didn't uh, end up being number one in the world. I had to stop when I was 20. Everything that I have done, I would do exactly the same way again, even if I would have known now retrospectively that I had the injury, because everything that led me to this moment, me sitting with you right here, is because of everything that I have experienced and everything that I haven't experienced. And in
Mm-hmm.
regards to missing out, I mean, you're going to be missing out, all right. Life is very complex. There is too much to do in this world for any human being. You
Mm-hmm.
could, it's not even possible to start talking about everything that you could be doing. So you're definitely missing out. It's impossible not to be missing out. So that's not really like a thing that is of any benefit to spend any time worrying about. Like, what did I not do?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you didn't do a lot of things. You didn't go to the Chinese Wall. You didn't go to the Empire State Building. Didn't become an Olympic athlete in equestrian, nor swimming, nor fencing, nor tennis, nor gymnastics. You're not this. You're not that. I mean, we can just continue the whole time. It's pointless. The
Mm-hmm.
only thing that is important is whatever you are doing right now. Are you paying attention to it? Are you enjoying it? And if you're enjoying it a lot, then do more of that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And like a few in your previous positions include head pro of Hospice's tennis academy, training the German national team, and personal coach for multiple top 10 tennis players, including Victoria Azarenka, which was formerly first in the world, and Andrea Pizzocchi, former 10th in the world. Like, what was it like coaching them and being head of Hospice's tennis academy?
Well, it's really at the end of the day, it's not that different than coaching anybody else. You're working with an individual, right? Whether it's number one in the world or number 10 or no ranking whatsoever. Uh, what is different is how much passion they are lucky to be experiencing when they are competing. They just want it more, which is lucky. This wanting is not something that they chose, but it's something they experience. And because they want it more, they try harder and train more, right? And then the chances of them being more successful than the people that want it less and try less increase, right? It's not guaranteed, but like it's higher. So with athletes like that, Victoria Azarenka, Andrea Petkovic, right? It's kind of like that. It's they're more passionate. Sometimes they also have more physical talent that have been given to them. But no matter how much talent physically they had, they also need to try very hard and harder than all the others if they want to make it. And because they did, that's where they got. That's why they got to the top 10 of the world and the number one. But in
Mm-hmm.
regards to, how it is to coach them, or there's not really that big of a difference. There's a difference between no matter who you coach, because it's a different human being, but there is also not that big of a difference just because they're number one in the world or number 5 or number 100.
Exactly. And like, do you think like mental health plays a valid role in um basically sports performances, or do you think like it kind of really does not play a role?
Yeah, mental health plays a huge role in sports performance, but in any part of life, really, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one way to kind of look upon mental health, and it's a very, very complex subject, but it's basically what we have been already talking about right now. It's how much are you living in your head and thinking about the future or thinking about the past? And
Mm-hmm.
if you think too much about the future or the past, then you have something that could be described as a wandering mind. And the wandering mind, we now have a lot of scientific studies on, is an unhappy mind.
Mm-hmm.
So even though you might have pleasant or positive thoughts, you're still not going to be as happy as if you have the ability to, yeah, you want to think. Thinking is very important and very helpful, but you don't want to be lost in thought too much of the time. And most of the time, you want to pay attention to what you're doing right this second. So in our case right now, like there's many things that you could do. So if what I'm saying, or for all the listeners, this is of relevance, then the one thing that they want to pay attention to is like what I'm saying,
Yeah.
right? That would right now be the most important. Or if you're cleaning the dishes, then you want to pay attention to how it feels and cleaning the dishes and watching it and feeling it. And if you are going on the beach, taking a walk with your dog, you want to pay attention to that. If you're doing an activity and you're paying attention to something else, then the activity most of the time, not all the time, is not as fulfilling, and you're not performing as good.
Because like when you're not like enjoying what's in front of you, like let's say this conversation, for example, whoever is listening to this podcast right at this moment, like if people really focus on what you're saying, because who knows, like they might take it on to future endeavors, whether it's like, oh, how can I be mindful of my performance in the future in sports, or how am I focused on what I'm saying or my mental performance in this thing? Because I know with me, like mental health and what I'm doing plays a valid role in like what I want to do. Do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? Like everyone deals with that. Like everyone wants to know, like, how do I like do I want to do this thing every single day? Like, you have to have that energy and dedication to at least do this thing every single day. But as long as you love it and you have the heart to do it every single day, then like that's the most important thing. Because who knows, like this person right now that is listening might want to be a tennis player growing up, or is training and wants to go to say the Olympics, for example, or like one of the biggest tennis things in the world, but doesn't know how to get that mindset or training to get into that thing. So who knows, like this conversation or any conversation that people might be listening to, whether it's like interviews, podcasts, or just people around them talking, like it might impact them to go to something bigger than they already are. And like, what are like the 5 pillars of mindfulness?
The 5 pillars of mindfulness would be first, basically, you can divide mindfulness in different ways, in terms of what skills are they. There would be 3 different skills. Or what effects does mindfulness have on your life, or what can they have, right? So
Mm-hmm.
these pillars would be first, suffering. So you can use mindfulness to reduce your own suffering. Okay, if you're experiencing suffering, so meaning you have a lot of aversion, you don't like it. Okay, so the more mindful you become, the less of a bummer the things that you don't like will be. The second one would be happiness, so increased happiness compared to the first one, decreased suffering, you can use mindfulness to increase your own happiness, which would mean that things that are pleasant to you, you will be able to enjoy more and you will experience more fulfillment from the joy that you're experiencing. The third pillar would be to start to understand yourself better. So you're gaining insight into who you are, how you function, how does your mind function, your emotions, and how do you function on an experiential level. Fourth one would be positive behavior change. You can use mindfulness to positively impact your behavior, meaning you can stop doing things that you know are not good for you, but you still are doing it. So with more mindfulness, you will be able to do less of them or stop them altogether. Or there's things that you know are good for you, but you're not doing enough of them or you're not doing them at all, and you will start to be able to do more of them or start to do them to begin with. And then the fifth one would be love and connection. So when you're more mindful, you will gain the ability, or you can train yourself to acquire the ability or improve the ability to experience more love and connection with yourself, with others, even with people that you don't like so much for some reason. And depending on which one of these 5 pillars, or maybe multiple or all of them, are interesting to anybody, you have the ability to tailor one's practice and techniques in a way that it is more focused on reducing suffering or increasing happiness, insight, and so forth.
I love that. I definitely had to take all those 5 steps for sure, because I definitely need to at least take out at least one of those in my life right now. Because life is actually, I know with everyone is definitely going through life difficult at the same time, whether it's like love, patience, work. But like I think that's like the best way to wrap that episode up, because like with everything going on, like I think you explained everything so well, and I hope everyone took as much as I did in this episode. And thank you so much, Christian, for taking the time to come on. It's an honor to talk to you. I really appreciate it. And I love everything you're doing. So thank you so much for coming on. And thank you everyone for listening. I appreciate it. And see you everyone next episode. And I hope you have a great rest of your day, Christian. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, my dear.
Have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.